This is one of the earliest Wonky Cottage videos I ever made. The camera is wobbly, the garden is optimistic, and absolutely nobody involved knew this would eventually become a whole remake of the remake. Good morning. Today on Wonky Cottage, we are going to have a walk around the garden, talk about what's currently happening and what's coming up. So while Phil is washing the Jeep, grab your beverage of choice and let's go for a walk. Boy, you better make it a strong beverage. You're going to need it. We are coming up now to the main bed at the cottage front. The daylilies are growing lush and green. They will need to be split this fall. Here we have 2021 Karla speaking very confidently about the daylilies. You may get the impression that I planted them, nurtured them, or had any meaningful role in their success. I did not. They were here when we bought the house, and in the original 2019 video, I referred to them only as a green thing. Growth was happening. Mine just hadn't started yet. Eventually, we'll have a full lower level bursting with green and orange. The upper level of the main bed has been stuffed with bulbs, which are slowly making themselves known. It's been a cold spring, so everything is a little slow this year. Iris, dahlia, glads, several varieties of lilies, with a few marigolds and petunias tossed in for spots of color. This bed did, in fact, explode with color. Once. Then winter explained the terms and conditions. Apparently, glads and dahlias expect to be dug up and stored indoors for winter. 2021 me did not know this. 2026 me has never planted them again. Our lavender made it through the winter. I'm so happy to see it come back. Lavender, she says. Ma'am, there's a tag. It says salvia. And the native prairie sage is back too. Right. We need to stop here. 2021 me is calling this prairie sage. It is not prairie sage. It is wormwood. And to be fair, even my dad knew that. He called me after the first video specifically to warn me that I was allowing a plant to grow to roughly my own height, one that would, in his words, take over the planet. I assume in his mind he was picturing Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. He was not entirely wrong. I have been pulling wormwood out of flower beds ever since. Now we're coming up to a section where I spend way too much time talking about lilac trees. Let's speed this up. 2021 me is about to use the word reviving again. I would like the record to show that reviving mostly meant purchasing a half-dead coleus, placing it somewhere questionable, and then taking credit if it chose survival. This was not propagation. This was plant-based optimism with very little follow-through. The coleus did recover. I did not learn anything from this. Closer to the back of the upper bed, we have a coleus we are reviving, and the flower tower my dad made for me, petunias and grasses in it this year. We also have a bluebird clematis we've relocated that's coming along nicely. And here we arrive at the wood bed, which at this point in 2021 I believed was going to be a charming little rustic flower bed beside the fence. What it actually became was the site of the great underground sprinkler flood of 2021. Somewhere under all this enthusiasm, there was a sprinkler head. I did not know that. The flower bed did not know that. The sprinkler system absolutely knew that. And when it turned on, this entire area became less cottage garden and more budget water feature. To be fair, the wood border was cute, the plants were hopeful, the vision was there. The drainage, however, had left the chat. And here is the part I had apparently blocked from memory. I did not do this once, I did it twice. The first time I came outside, I found a mini mudslide in the woodbed, and I had no idea what had happened. Honestly, I thought maybe my neighbor had left her hose running, because obviously that made more sense than the possibility that I had buried an active sprinkler head under my brand new flower bed. So I did what any determined gardener would do. I fixed the bed, replanted the marigolds, patted myself on the back. And the next day, I turned the sprinkler back on. Again. At which point the garden gently explained that this was not a neighbor problem, this was a me problem. In the woodbed, there is a mix of morning glories and Virginia creepers slowly making their way up the netting in the back, a row of marigolds to entice our bee friends to visit us, and in the front some baby lilies that were rescued from a construction zone on the other side of the yard. Phil made the border for the bed from some larger branches we pruned earlier this spring. I couldn't have asked for a more beautiful fence. This next bunch is too painful for me to watch. I'm going to fast forward this. This may be the bravest clematis in recorded history. This stand by me was planted not in a flower bed, not in good garden soil, but in rocks on top of gravel. Because clearly I was not thinking about what the plant wanted. I was thinking about what looked good in my head. My vision, a huge, beautiful clematis tumbling romantically over orange ornamental stone. The clematis's vision, I assume, was survival. And somehow, he gave it his best shot. The ironic thing is, this one I actually did learn from. Eventually, I moved him. Not far, maybe 2 feet from where he started life. But this time, I put him in actual dirt, for roots. Revolutionary concept. And now, he's living a good life. He had a rough start, but he found his forever home. Honestly, he's basically the rescue dog of clematis. Neglected beginning, questionable first placement, lots of emotional baggage. But with a little care, a better home, and absolutely no orange gravel under his feet, he turned into something beautiful. This bed had 2 very out-of-control lilac trees. This one we cut right back earlier this spring, and it's already starting to come back with fresh shoots. This one we did last fall, and this spring it came back with a vengeance. They look much healthier than they did. Next year, this one should flower. Blah, blah, blah. Cherry trees, blah, blah, blah. Grapes, blah, blah, blah. Pollinator bed, blah, blah, blah. Strawberries, oh my lord. This was another one of my 2021 flower bed experiments. The good news is I did not cover a sprinkler head this time. The bad news is I covered everything else. Cardboard, landscape fabric, 2 inches of dirt. Then I stood back and wondered why the plants weren't thriving in their shallow little root prison. Truly a mystery for the ages. I realized listening back that I spend a truly remarkable amount of time talking about lilacs. Not just mentioning them, not just pointing them out. No, I'm giving updates, providing family history. I'm discussing structure, health, future plans, emotional resilience. These are not shrubs anymore. These are like main characters. And honestly, I may need to source out some professional help. Not for the lilacs, for me. Over to the rhino bed. We call it the rhino bed because it had been full of seed pucks that looked like rhino poop. It's a small shaded bed, so we've got a couple of hosta, some lily of the valley, and a few marigolds for color. Misidentified plants aside, nothing ever grows in this bed except hosta. And now for variety, more lilacs. Because apparently in 2021 I was operating under a strict no footage taken can be wasted policy. And now we are coming to our biggest project this year, the hosta bed. Those little white Japanese mock orange bushes in the back were over 8 feet high and had completely filled the bed. Yeah, These are not mock orange. So we cut them right down and spent a day digging out roots. We've reconditioned the soil in there and then split our existing hosta, which were overcrowded, and spaced them out in the reclaimed area. We planted lily bulbs between the hosta, so they should show up next year. Now I do want to pause here for a minute and talk about the hosta bed. Because if anything was an actual win in 2021, it was this bed. We did it right. We dug out a huge spirea. We dug down and got the roots out. We brought in good soil, worked it all in, and gave the bed a proper fresh start. Then we split and moved a whole collection of overgrown, cramped hosta that were already fighting for space in another part of the yard. We spread them out, we gave them room, we mulched the top. I mean, truly, we did this one properly. And the effort paid off. This became a lovely bed, a real honest-to-goodness Wonky Cottage success story. Which means, naturally, we now have to take it apart. Because as it happens at Wonky Cottage, nothing is allowed to simply remain peaceful and successful forever. Our neighbor is having some work done, and in order to get the machinery where it needs to go, this hosta bed has to be destroyed. So, field trip. The hostas are moving to the north side of the house where they will hopefully settle into their new next chapter. Bye, hosta bed. It was nice knowing you. This little shrub is a Spirea japonica. It grows well in rocky soil, so the hope is it will spread underneath the stairs to the upper deck. So far, so good. It has beautiful flowers that should come out in a month or two, so watch for that on future videos. This is kind of funny. So it turns out there was no bird actually in it. We were just watching an empty nest. Bunch of construction nonsense. This is another mock orange, about the same size as the one that was in the hosta bed. Yay! I identified one correct. It was a mock orange. We did cut it all the way down to the ground, cleaned up all those dead sticks, and it came back looking great. Nonsense about hens and chicks and tulips. And now we find ourselves at Lily Corner. Then came the red lily beetle. What followed was the 5-year war. And as history records, the lilies lost. So this bed is headed for a full regime change. Out go the lilies, in come the hosta and peonies. In the original video, I go on and on and on about everything that's going on in this bed. You know what this bed is? It's a flower bed. Moving on. And now we arrive at Hospital Row. This is where 2021 Karla took plants that were suffering and moved them to a special recovery ward. Facing east, in full healthy sun, with sparse water, excessive heat, and confined to pots. So less hospital and more experimental Victorian sanatorium. Honestly, think iron lung for plants. These poor things had already been struggling, and my solution was to isolate them in black plastic pots against the house and hope for a medical miracle. There were not many survivors. Fortunately, by 2026, Hospital Row had been shut down by the authorities. Restitution has been made to the descendants of the original patients, and we are all committed to doing better. To be fair, there were some early signs of education. Not formal education, let's not get carried away, but signs. We did have a couple of planters that actually didn't look too bad. One even had the classic thriller, filler, spiller feature, completely accidentally. I didn't know what I was doing, but technically, it still counts. There was height, there was fullness, there was something trailing over the edge. Was it intentional design? No. Was it evidence that somewhere deep down a gardener was trying to emerge? Maybe. And then there was another planter where you could see the beginnings of an idea, not a fully formed idea, more like a garden thought with training wheels. But still, it was progress. Oh boy.